Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Amy attacks with Burning Sun Cavalry while she controls a dinosaur. Nick responds to the trigger by killing the dinosaur, so now Amy doesn't have one. What happens? So if you've been a fan of this channel for a while now, you know that I'm a bit of a templating nerd. So this new kind of trigger condition on Burning Sun Cavalry got me really fired up. The trigger condition for this ability says it triggers when you attack while you control a dinosaur, but doesn't say anything about what would happen if you were to stop controlling a dinosaur after that. Once the ability has triggered, it exists on the stack independently of its source, and it will go on to resolve even if the game state changes. Therefore, Amy's Burning Sun Cavalry will get the buff even if Nick kills her only dinosaur in response to the trigger. Nick would have to use his removal spell before Amy declared attackers if he wanted to stop this ability. Let's take a look at this other card, Tilonalli's Knight, and see if the answer is any different. Another thing that you've probably heard of if you've been watching this channel for a while is intervening if clauses. Notice that Tilo's Knight has an if condition in between the trigger event and the effect of the ability. This template means that the trigger follows special rules, and the if condition must be true both when the ability is triggering and when it goes on to resolve, otherwise it will do nothing. I have a video linked here in the description if you'd like to learn about intervening if clauses in more detail, but for now we'll observe the obvious consequence as it pertains to this scenario, which is that, unlike what we had with Burning Sun Cavalry, it is possible to respond to this trigger by killing all the dinos to stop the creature from getting the buff. There's actually one more template that's commonly used, but unfortunately I couldn't find a suitably on-theme card that used it, so I had to make this one up. Notice that this time the if clause does not appear in between the trigger condition and the effect. This means that we do not have an intervening if clause. This does not get any special handling like what Tilo's Knight had, and the trigger condition is just when it attacks, meaning that the ability will trigger anytime you attack, whether you control a dinosaur or not. The check of whether you control a dinosaur is made on resolution, meaning that this ability will do something only if you control a dinosaur at the time that it resolves. This means that if your opponent kills your dinosaur before the ability resolves, you will not get the buff, which is the exact opposite of what we had with Burning Sun Cavalry. Finally, let's take a look at the king of guys riding a dinosaur, Yagrad the Great. We can see that this one has a bit of a variant on what the last custom card had. Like the last example, the ability will trigger anytime the trigger event happens, no matter how many dinosaurs you have at that time. Also, like the last example, the game makes the check of how many dinosaurs you have on resolution. So playing some more or killing some in response to the trigger would affect the size of the buff. To sum up, there have been a lot of different templates Wizards has used to introduce some measure of conditionality into triggered abilities. Sometimes that happens in the trigger condition and it affects whether the ability triggers at all. Other times it's built into the effects and it changes whether the ability does something as it resolves. And other times it's both. Now that you're familiar with the most common types of templates that are used for this sort of effect, I hope you will be able to rule with confidence if a situation involving one of these kind of triggers comes up in a game that you're a part of. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.